How's it going, fellas? Today we're going to be talking about Kaido. Alright, we're going to jump straight in because, well, I just want to talk about him today because One Piece literally, the Wano arc is finally over. Now, I loved the Wano arc. I know I talked about a lot of my complaints about it in my discussion on 1057, but overall, I really enjoyed the arc. It's definitely not my favorite arc so far, and I haven't even decided if it's in my top 5. You know what? Like, really, there's a lot of flaws to it. It has some of the highest in the series, the highest highs in the series, but also some of the lowest lows. So really, the anime is going to decide for me what my final decision is on it, but it cannot be number one. After the rewatch, Amnesia just bothers me too much, and various different smaller things, and the latest chapter as well. I know I talked somewhat positively about a lot of moments about it, but I also said I skipped a shit ton. Like, I know I talked about it briefly. I actually didn't make the joke because I didn't read that part that much. But all the stuff with Hiyori, that was a bit wild. I can't wait to see the memes though on it. It is a bit wild, but however, I know I watched a few videos on it later on, and people said, "Oh well, that's just he's showing that that's how the world is. Not everything ends nicely. Sometimes we repeat repeat the mistakes that we made in the past," and that's what Oda was trying to convey with this. But I don't know if that's entirely true, to be honest with you, because he's never done it before, and it'd be weird to do it with Wano, particularly considering how much of a big arc that was, and you'd want to pay it off well. But as I said, I did like the actual ending where they had the photo. I enjoyed that itself and the whole stuff with Momo and Luffy. But that's not Kaido related, so let's move on. I just wanted to complain a bit more because I've been sitting here for a bit trying to figure it out, rereading it over and over again. But Kaido. I talked a bit about Kaido before, and I have my opinions on Kaido. Personally, when he was introduced, I thought he was cool. I liked the whole Yonko idea, and he landed on Kid. And also, when he was introduced, we got more Erouge, which I always love because I want to see Erouge do shit, right? At the end of the day, Erouge to me is a really cool character, and when he was introduced with Kaido, I thought, when he was showing off in the Kaido introduction, I was like, oh, is he going to do shit? But nah, I was mainly focused on getting Kaido to run into Kid, which I thought was showing off pretty well when he beat the fuck out of Kid, and you could see him in the chamber. Like, the drunk ass Kaido feel was really cool at the start, because we hadn't had a sort of out of it villain, he had his motivations, and he seemed really depressed. And I think that was an interesting take on a One Piece villain, because most One Piece villains seemed very self-assured and very like their wills were still there. But Kaido seemed depressed and just done with the world. And I think in terms of that particular character trait, I think Oda did a very good job. Because Kaido did seem like he just didn't give a shit anymore. He just wanted the world to go out with a bang. In fact, the fact he had such strong Congress hockey is, to me, a miracle. Because he seems so depressed and so out of it. And the fact that he's now, like, he's this strong currently is, I'd say, a positive to Kaido as a whole. Now, I will say, right, for Kaido, if my idea is right, and the whole, your will, like your current will is how strong your Conqueror's hockey is. So, for example, Garp would be weaker now after the Marineford War and everything that happened, because he would be less confident and he'd be more easy to command than he would be beforehand. Kaido might have been stronger before as well. Now, this is just a theory, so it doesn't really impact anything, but I do think that'd be a cool idea. In fact, we were fighting a nerfed Kaido in that sense, which would be pretty cool. But I do have to think, though, with Kaido, with everything that was built up with him and, his sort of depression and everything, we never found out the reason for it. Obviously, fucking Odin was a main contributor to that, but it felt like there was more to it. We did find out the overall reason he wanted the war was because he wanted to take down the Celestial Dragons. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. But the only thing that hinted at that was in his backstory, he was getting sold off to Celestial Dragons, and it wasn't pushed on more. Now, we do know he was on the Rocks crew, so you can infer that he was annoyed because Rocks was also killed by Celestial Dragons, and everything they worked for to get rid of the Celestial Dragons failed. So he wanted to burn the world to the ground using a great war, which in fact, if you think about it, might have been to the world government's advantage, because as long as Emu and the Great Elder survived, they could restart the world and have that great cleansing they hoped for. You know what I mean? So maybe that would have been a good thing for them. And that's you see, the thing that's great about Kaido is that it allows you to have those questions with the character. You're constantly thinking about new possibilities that could have happened, that his backstory could have been, and that's what made him so intriguing when he was a week to week villain, because we didn't know what it could be. We knew, there were so many options, and then when he had that discussion with Yamato where he was like, I'm here in Wano because it's special, right? And then even when he was fighting the Scabbards and he was like, pirates alliances always end in betrayal, right? And everyone was like, oh my god, Whitebeard must have betrayed the Rocks pirates. None of that was confirmed, right? Obviously, I think people still assume a lot of it, but absolutely none of it was confirmed. No information on Kaido was basically revealed besides small fella, big fella, little fella. Like, you know what I mean? Well, no, sorry. Small fella, medium fella, little, big fella. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. At the end of the day, it was just sort of like that. I'm a little guy. I'm a medium guy. I'm a big guy. There's a whole meme about it with the Guts theme, and that's really cool. But it's just, there wasn't much revealed at all. And at the end of the day, Yamato's backstory for someone who isn't going to get like pushed on with joining the crew was pretty weak as well. I enjoyed it, definitely. But it just feels that Kaido and every single person involved in him does feel a little bit of a letdown, considering how much he was pushed and how much speculation was there because of the mystery he provided, right? So I don't know how I feel, because big buff dragon who beats the shit, who's like the strongest creature on the planet and has so many philosophical discussions with Luffy and Odin, and it was really cool. I loved that shit. And his honor system, everything I loved about Kaido was never explored, which I feel like, and I know I talked about, he's still in my top 3 villains or whatever, but I don't know if I can do that. I don't know. I think about it, talk about it so much, and I don't know how I feel about him. There still feels like there's so much to him that I want to discover, and I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. Like, we get more. We're probably going to get more about Big Mom and Elbath a little bit. We're probably going to get more about Whitebeard in the Rocks. But that's the thing. We got more about Whitebeard in the Odin flashback. But the thing is, right, we already knew a shit ton about Whitebeard. We knew enough to love his character. But we didn't get that with Kaido. Now, it's entirely possible that when the anime comes out with that flashback, they're going to really improve upon it, because they'll be like, let's say stuff is already revealed in the manga. They'll be like, let's reveal it now, to stuff it out a little bit so we have that there, right? So if we get things in the coming months, maybe that will show up in the anime when they get to the point where they reveal the flashback. And that's going to be a year from now. So we could get more juicy information from then on, really. But I don't know. Kaido, the reason I make this video and talk about Kaido in such a confused manner is because he's a confusing fella. Because, alright, his fight with Luffy was really good. His fight with the Scabbards was really good, and his discussion about how death completes a person. But that was never viewed upon again. Again, it's a lot of inferring the meanings behind Kaido. And in a sense, I know it's like, oh, well, it's all about show, don't tell. They're showing his character. They're not telling you how it happened, right? And I'm sure some people would argue, oh, that's great, that's great storytelling. We see Kaido, but they don't tell us. Like, it's great storytelling. But the fact we don't get to see, the reason why Kaido feels the way about death and how it relates to Joy Boy, why he cares so much about Joy Boy. And I feel like, alright, you could argue everything else is Rocks related, okay? But the fact we don't get to know why he's in Wano in the first place and is ridiculous, okay? It really is. Again, there's more inferring to do with that. You could infer that it's Pluton. You can infer that it's to stop Joy Boy. There's a lot of stuff you could basically theorize about, but there's no confirmations. And zero confirmations about any of the ideals of Kaido, of the main villain, of the biggest arc in the series that takes up over 10% of it, is ridiculous, right? But he's just so... Again, with me, One Piece villains, I scrapped a video a while back all about how One Piece villains are carried by their aesthetic, which I start to agree with more. Because why do you think Doflamingo is such an amazing villain? Because he had the One Piece charisma, aesthetic, and just vibe, and also voice actor, with that backstory, with that compelling characterization, with the relation to Law as a character. Now, I don't like to put Doflamingo as my favorite villain because I rushed through Dressrosa heavily and didn't read. And over time, it kind of fades. I need to do a rewatch of Dressrosa to really talk about it. I do love Doflamingo. I know I didn't. I talked a bit down about on him in that video, but I still think Katakuri is probably my favorite out of the villains, to be honest, because he has a simple motivation, simple backstory, but it just works for Katakuri. It works very well. And that's the thing, you could have had it simply. Like, Oda could have put in something about his ogre heritage and focused more on his childhood, and maybe we could have seen that, and that could have given us a relation to Kaido. Like, you could have had him, okay, he's the strongest creature or whatever, and they couldn't retain him. But you could have easily put in the fact that maybe, we could have seen more about his experiments and how they affected him as a person and sympathized with him, You didn't have to show us rock stuff, but you could have just showed us anything at all, But what do I know? We don't even know if like King was on his crew when he was in Rocks, right? We don't even know if he had. No, I guess it was assumed he didn't. But like, come on, there was nothing revealed about him, to be honest with you. And I feel like and I always thought, you know what? Even if there isn't, Yamato is going to be on the crew, so we'll get that information through Yamato flashbacks and like her talking about things she knows about her father, and like she'll ask more questions when we meet people. If we meet like Vegapunk, or if we meet like, anyone who knows anything about Rocks, if we meet fucking Rocks or Emu, she'll be asking questions because she wants to know a bit more about her father and how that would affect Odin. But of course, no, because why would we? No, look, and Tomoe Yamato joining the crew, it's honestly for the best, right? At the end of the day, I was watching BDA Law's reaction to it, and he was basically explaining why, because obviously characterization and stuff, and he's right, it is, but I'm a little disappointed. I wanted that newspaper article, and it also gave me an excuse to hope we get more on Kaido, and we probably will with the rock stuff, but it's still a disappointment, realistically. I don't know how I feel, to be honest with you, because I think about it all the time, and Rob Lucci wasn't really characterized that much either. He was just a stoic fighter, but it somehow worked because the main focus was heavily on Robin. And even the main villain, like, it was that extremely hateable, I can't remember his name, the purple-haired fella. The purple-haired fella, right? He was extremely hateable, right? But not to Orochi's level. He actually was there. Orochi didn't really interact with the main cast. He was extremely hateable, but he didn't feel like a satisfying villain when he was killed. It was satisfying when he was killed, but it didn't feel like it, right? Was it Spandam? I think it was Spandam. When Spandam got his ass kicked by Robin or was dragging Robin along, you hated the bastard. And Rob Lucci felt like a good fight to conclude the arc. And you got, because of his family's relation to Robin's, the ending of her island, it made you hate the bastard so much. And when, it kind of gave you a villain to really, really hate. And so Rob Lucci's lack of characterization wasn't that bad, because not only did you have two Straw Hat backstories in that arc that really worked in with the current arc and worked in with the current villains without giving them much backstory, but with Kaido it was entirely different. I feel like he was trying to go for a similar approach, but it just didn't work, in my opinion. Now, am I saying Wano's bad? God no. You can have a slightly lackluster, and like, Kaido is still a good villain. For everything I say, like, he's got the aesthetic, he's got the character, he's got that mystery, and he's got those ideals that he sticks to and themes that are constantly shown through Kaido, but it's just never explained. You know what I mean? And I'd say in retrospect, Wano is going to be great. And look, I know I was so excited once 1052 came out, and that at the end of Kaido's fight, I made a whole video saying best arc in the series, yeah, let's go. I don't think that anymore. As things wind down and I get more time to think about it, I get further in through my rewatch, I reread certain chapters, it's just, I don't know. I really don't know. I do want to know, though, what the general opinion turns out to be in the end after a few years. Because I feel like Dressrosa is sort of like, everyone's sort of come back on it, right? Because you can reread it in one go, and you can like rewatch it in one go. You know, everyone's sort of agreed the anime of Dressrosa is bad, but in terms of the arc, everyone's like, yeah, that's a really good arc, right? So I want to see what Wano kind of comes out to in the end. After a few years of separation, which we probably won't get till the end of the series at this point, with it being about 3 or 5 years away. So yeah, it's gonna be weird, and we're gonna focus on a lot more now coming up. But at the end of the day, I don't know how I feel about Kaido. Part of me loves him because of his character, you know, the mystery, his ideals, the designs of his forms, you know, all the. But it just wasn't resolved. None of it was resolved. None of it was explained. So he's got that mystery, but it's over. He's fucking dead for all we know. That's the thing. He died with none of his backstory explained. None of his character really fleshed out too heavily outside of his current form. We got some cool shit, but it was never fully elaborated on because he's fucking dead now. I don't. And in hindsight, it's going to be great, and we'll probably like Kaido more, but it's not going to fix the Wano arc. It's still going to. It might fix the problem we have with Kaido as a character, but even if we get this information later on, it's not going to fix Wano. Because we didn't have that information in Wano. We might have it now, but you can look back on it and be like, wow, all this means so much. Wano is so much better with this information. But if you're viewing the arcs as they are, Wano is still going to be pretty weird because you don't have that information, and the villain was slightly underwhelming, you know? It's weird, okay? It really is. But at the end of the day, I think he did a good job as a villain, but it just wasn't. It kind of, not that he stayed stagnant, but as I said, it's just everything is unknown about him. Really, literally everything is unknown about him. They couldn't unveil anything through that backstory, really, at all, which was disappointing. But we'll see how the general opinion fares out when the anime gets to its backstory, and when the manga gets further along and we get more rock stuff. But I feel like Kaido is both a blessing and a curse on the Wano arc. And that's kind of... I'm split in the middle with him, to be honest, at this point. I know I was a lot more positive on him in my review on 1057, but this is literally hours apart as I'm recording this, and my opinion is sort of shifting in my head as we speak. You know, so it's a very tough decision to finally make on how I feel about Kaido. But with that being said, there's a lot more time and a lot more rereads that can be done. And I used to not like Anel that much, but then I rewatched Skypiea over and over again for various reasons, and now I love him. He's probably one of my favorite villains, if not, he's probably my second favorite villain besides Katakuri, right? And then Doflamingo and Crocodile are like a big fight. Because, like, Crocodile... Again, because this is what I'm saying with One Piece villains, because I kind of know what I'm getting into, and I'm more invested in other things. A lot of the time, my favorite villains are the Ruler Cool or different things like that. But I was just expecting more from Kaido, I guess, after Doflamingo and even Katakuri. Like, that was back-to-back solid villains, back-to-back. So you were expecting more from Kaido than you would have been a Rob Lucci or an Enel. So there was more to live up to. And I guess that's the best way to describe it, honestly, is that it did not live up to what it was originally given us, if that makes any sense. But hey, that's only my opinion. Tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. And with that being said, I will see you all next time. Goodbye.